Welcome everyone. I know you were expecting Braydon here, but you're getting me instead, sadly, sorry. Braydon got caught up and he may be able to join, but we are not sure. So I get the honor of introducing you all to Lydia Denton, inventor extraordinaire at only 15. And so we are very excited to have her joining us today as our first guest speaker on our STEM Wednesday series. And I personally can't wait to hear all the different things she will tell us about what she's working on and how she got started and everything like that. So before I get into the more formal interview questions, how about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
It's Lydia. I'm 15 years old, and I've been doing inventing for probably about 8 or 9 years now, 8 or 9 years. Um, it's just such a big part of what I do. I love being able to problem solve and be able to see these problems and come up with solutions to be able to help others or people that are close to me. Um, so, yeah, it's just something I really enjoy doing, and I like being able to tell other people about what I do to maybe inspire them to do some sort of STEM pathway in their careers or just as a hobby.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait to start getting into more of those questions, but I already love what I'm hearing with, enabling people to figure out how to solve their own problems and things like that. So before I jump too much further in, everyone in the chat, we do want to keep participation going like normal. So feel free at any point to throw your own questions into the chat. We will save a little bit of time at the end for those, but if Lydia sees one she likes, she may just answer it in the middle as well. But let's get started by everyone telling us which state you're coming in from. And we'll get this chat going there. I'll keep an eye on it as we go through the interview. So I'm coming in from Colorado. Last week I was in South Carolina. All right, Texas, California,
I'm from
Ohio.
North Carolina, so
Oh, nice.
kind of all the way on the other coast a little bit.
North Carolina is lovely.
It
Pennsylvania, more
is.
Texas. Are you seeing the chat, Lydia? You've got access to that
Yes,
too?
I do.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's jump right in. First question I've got for you. How did you first discover that you loved sort of inventing things and solving problems?
I really began to see that I liked doing this. My mom's a science teacher, so she was always looking for new things she could introduce in the classroom to get people interested in STEM. So she started doing this competition called Explore Vision. And basically, you come up with an invention idea, you write up a bit about it, sketch it out. And I did it with a group. And I realized that this is something, it's so cool to be able to see your ideas come to life. So we were making it and we ended up getting an honorable mention. And I thought it was insanely cool. That's something that my group had thought up, was able to get to real scientists and real minds. And as I continued to do that over the years and other inventions and just constantly brainstorming new ideas, I realized it was something I wanted to pursue further than just the drawings on the page.
Yeah. And so I hear you mentioned that your mom was a science teacher. How much does having that female role model empower you as an inventor? Because I feel like that has to have had some impact on this.
I think it does definitely. I think it helps that she understands some of the things I might go through when I'm trying to invent something. If I'm really stuck on one problem, she's usually able to help me because she's very good about finding resources. If it's something I don't know, she's really good at finding something that I might be able to use to help myself. Or she's a pretty good coder. She can help me with that, and she's really good with circuits. So there's certain things she has more knowledge about that definitely helped guide me through a lot of the process of things I've done.
So I see in the chat, and the next question I was going to ask is, what are some of those things you have done? Tell us about some of your favorite inventions or things that you are currently working on.
So I have quite a few different inventions. Some of my favorites, this is one you guys might have heard of, is the Beat the Heat car seat. It was an idea I came up with my siblings after a really devastating news story about two twins dying in a hot car. I realized this is something that was much bigger than our small town, and it affected so many different people, so I wanted to do something about it. So I created this device that would be able to contact 911 if the temperature rose to an unsafe level. And that really started off my inventing. And I've created many inventions since then. Another that I'm really proud of is one that I made with a group. It's called Breathe, Bioreactive Emergency Alert to Hypoxic Episodes. It's, it's an acronym.
Might need to get
And
that one spelled out.
this one, I have it right here, actually. And it has a little bracelet that has a monitor that would monitor your blood oxygen. You can see the chip there. And if
Oh,
it gets to an unsafe level, usually that's below 80%, it would be able to start flashing with lights. And there's an LCD display, but this is a little bit torn apart at the moment, and it would be able to alert passerby. And if someone wasn't able to get the blood oxygen back up, it was able to contact 911 with the GPS location. So this is one that actually I was able to go to LA this past summer. And I have many other ones with a similar group. I made the awash wheel to help power sump pumps in the case of flooding. So that's something that happens in my town a lot. But I've made many different things, and it's just really cool to see what my brain can come up with. Sometimes even I'm mind boggled seeing what I've done.
but it's such an empowering feeling when you get to see your idea come to life. I know. So for my part, I have a degree in animation, and I learned how to do 3D modeling and design in a computer, and it only ever lived in a computer. So the first time I got a 3D printer and was able to actually see the thing I had made in a computer come out into the real world, it's mind blowing. And that's like just making an object, let alone putting in sensors and circuits and doing bigger scale inventions like what you've worked on.
It's just something that you don't realize how impactful something you've thought up can be until it's sitting right there in front of you. A lot of these ideas is just like, oh, it's just another thing I thought up. And then once it's actually there in front of you, it's just like, this is something I thought up. It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing lots of compliments in the comment here, just how impressive you are. And I think we can all agree on that one, but I'm sure you hear it all the time. Um, Truly coming up with life-saving devices is amazing. I mean, I can see so many different uses for this, and we all can relate to, we have had either currently or previously young babies in our lives, whether they're nieces, nephews, cousins, our own children, grandchildren, things like that. So when you talk about saving children, I'm assuming you have some sort of a pressure sensor to know when there's a baby in the seat, and a temperature sensor, and you're using all these different probes to tell, when there's danger there. And that's just, I find that so cool that you're able to take all these technology pieces and really turn them into something that should have already existed. Like, why was this not already a thing? And you made it happen.
I think for a lot of the things I've made, it's something that like a concept was already out there. And I've taken what I know and the part of the problem I want to solve and figuring out a way to implement that or further some ideas that are already out there.
Yeah. So what is your process for creating something? From our standpoint, we talk about the engineering design process and failing forward and all of the various iterations that you will go through to make something. But I'd like to know sort of how STEM works for you, how that engineering process works, because I can speak certainly and know that I'm sure your first version of everything is not the final version.
Definitely not. I think most of the things I've made, I follow a similar process. Usually, there's some sort of problem that I want to solve. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's something with nature or something that's affected someone around me. Um, so once I do that, I come up with some sort of idea. What do I want to fix? Then I research a little bit, see what might have already been done. Um, some things are already out there. What can I do that will differentiate what I want to make from that? Um, some things that are already out there, I think, what can I do to um, invent something totally new if it's something that hasn't been solved before? Then I ask a ton of questions. What parts might I need? Um, what skills might I need? For a lot of things, you have to learn new skills in order to build it. Do I need to find a mentor? Is this something that I don't know a lot about, but I need to learn more? Then I come up with a circuit schematic, which is basically a map of the entire circuit. And then I make the code for whatever it is that I'm building. And I 3D print parts, logos, or different things that can make just kind of rough prototype. And then I keep improving. I test it and I test it. Sometimes it takes over 100 tries. But then when I'm able to figure out what's wrong with it, I use that to propel myself forward and learn from what I did wrong so it doesn't happen again. And I'm able to continue learning throughout the entire process, not just building it, but getting it to work is also a big learning curve for me.
Oh, absolutely. Do you like take notes of things that you learned at each step, or is it more in your head, or do you have all this documentation? Sort of how do you work through the process other than testing it and seeing what went wrong? But
Usually, I kind of keep the circuit schematics of the different versions because most of the time it's something with hardware or something with code. If it's
mhm.
something with code, I'll try to make note of it in some way. Sometimes I write it down. Sometimes I'm really good at remembering that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, I remember that's something that I messed up and I need to make sure it doesn't happen again. Um, but usually I try to keep track of what worked and what didn't. So I know when I'm moving forward and I change certain things, I know, okay, I've changed this before and this worked really, really well. But now that I implemented this certain aspect, that's not working well. So maybe I need to tweak this in some way to be able to get this to work the way it needs to. So it's really just trial and error a lot of times.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You also mentioned that sometimes you have to go out and find mentors or experts in a field. Now, I know you have your mom at home as an expert that not everyone has, someone who can just build circuits and write code. But where do you go to find mentors? Like if you're talking to schools and students and they have ideas, where might they look for people who could help them with their ideas?
To have a really good support system around me. Sometimes, if you do a little bit of research, you can find if there's certain professionals in your area. Or if at your school you have a science teacher whose specialty is a certain place, they might be able to help you or direct you for different things that you might be able to get help from. It really depends on what you're working on. But a lot of the time, mentors can come from all over depending on the problem. If it's a problem you know a friend is having, maybe they can be your mentor and give you some insight on what they think would help them the most. Um, if it's something like coding, Scratch is a really good uh, outlet to be able to learn just the basics of code. And once you want to start going even further into coding, code.org teaches you really, really good ways for learning how to code. Um, but really, a lot of these different things, they can come from all over. So part of it is just finding someone you know might have a lot more knowledge in that area and getting them to help you in whatever you need help in.
Great. Yeah. And I do definitely think places like code.org and Scratch, I've done some code.org courses myself when I was dabbling in it. And there's just so many. We live in a wonderful era of technology where there's a lot of free resources out there, just Googling and looking around and things like that. So we got a question in the chat that I think relates to mentors, and this can be either for the question in the chat was, what are some ways parents can help support their children with inventing, being creative, building, etc. And I'd also like that to include teachers, like how could you build this environment in your classroom for creating this environment for students to start doing their own inventing.
So, I think one of the biggest thing is just being able to see that they have an idea or that they have an interest in this and finding a way to validate the fact that they want to do it. I think a lot of the times, parents just kind of blow it off as another phase. Um, but if you show that you're invested in what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and if they tell you a cool idea, be able to do whatever you can to kind of foster that and be able to grow it. Um, a lot of the times, I think parents are worried that with inventing or science, it can be a more expensive thing that you want to do. But a lot of the things I found are really, really easy to be able to learn and get them to want to do this and build creativity. One of my favorite things to use is snap circuits. They're pretty inexpensive and it teaches kind of basics of circuits, and you can create some really, really cool things with it. And that was one of the really good things when I was starting out that helped me be able to learn the basics of this. And once I moved on, I got this really cool kit from Arduino, which is a technology company. Um, and it has all these different parts, and it's, on the cheaper side. And it has all these different things that you can play with and learn how to connect and create all these different things. Um, there's a really good there's a lot of really good online resources. YouTube is a really good resource, especially for inventing. I use it all the time to learn how to do new things, or if there's something I don't know how to do, being able to use that. Um, and I think 3D printing is also really cool when it comes to this. Um, and I like to use uh, Tinkercad to be able to design things. And then before I got my Robo 3D printer that does the slicing, I used Cura. I was able to slice it so I could print things. Um, and I think with teachers as well, being able to make sure they're heard with their ideas. Because a lot of the times, kids don't feel like their ideas are getting out there or being heard or their ideas aren't important. I don't think that's true. I think everyone has really unique ideas, especially kids. They're so creative. They've all been exposed to all sorts of different things. So each kid is going to have wildly different perceptions of all these different things. And their unique ideas can morph into these amazing prototypes or whatever they're thinking of. Some kid might be really sporty and might learn how to do the next innovative thing in sports. One might be a really good dancer and knows how to make the next really great point shoe. It's really, I think it's really important just to know that they're heard. And a lot of the times, having your ideas just stuck in a classroom doesn't help. So being able to find ways to get it out there to actual people who will be able to do something about it. Competitions are a really, really good way to get your ideas out there. Exploravision was great. Being able to know my idea was getting to a real scientist who was going to look at it and give me feedback on how to improve the next time. That really helped me and a lot of my classmates who liked inventing. So I think there's just all these different things that you can do that, even if it's small, it can make someone feel so much better about wanting to invent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially when you start talking about validating their interests and ideas and giving students the freedom to actually explore and go forward with those ideas, because you're right about the creativity. Everyone here who's a teacher can attest that they give their students some sort of engineering or design challenge, and inevitably someone comes up with something you never foresaw, you didn't expect, and maybe it has some issues with it and you're like, why didn't I even think that someone would do this? Because just as children are growing, they're not as confined to the boxes adults often think we're supposed to fit in. So I think it's really a good point about, your youth being an advantage in some of these ways. The other thing that you were talking about is how you knew Explore Vision was going to go out and actually reach real scientists. I think for me, that's a big takeaway. I know we've done some competitions and such where students in schools can send ideas and have us look at them as, professionals. But I think if I just think about who my friends are and their careers, everyone out there has someone in their family who they went to college with, who, in all these different career areas. So if you just use your own network, you can have your students actually put their work in front of someone who maybe is a civil engineer or who is a doctor or a nurse or works in healthcare or whatever it is that their area is. It's not too hard to find someone in either your network or at least your fellow teachers' networks who would be willing to help out and show students that they're being heard and listened to.
Definitely. I think really just looking around in your community, there's so many mentors or people in my community that have been able to help me just by looking around. Um, on Facebook, there's a lot of communities that you're able to find. Um, it's really important just to be able to realize who might be around you with certain resources.
Yeah, so you mentioned switching a little here to, you mentioned some online tools that you use, Tinkercad for your 3D modeling and design. You mentioned some of the physical circuits you use. I know Tinkercad also has like a circuit board interface where students can plan circuits and do all of that even completely free of charge without any expense there, which I'm glad you did bring up, because I know for a lot of teachers and parents that expense side does come into play. Are there any other good online tools that you use other than code.org, Tinkercad, places like that, as references? And I'm actually just going to be typing these in the chat for anyone who is here with us, if they want to bookmark or look these things up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things out there. It depends on where you are as well. Um, being able to find different resources is really, really important. Sometimes it depends on who you're teaching as well or who it caters to. Some people are more visual learners. So you want to find different simulators. Me too. I'm completely visual learner. I can't just hear facts. But I like to be able to see simulators and see how something is working and all the different components. Some people just like the plain facts. One of the favorite similar simulators I use is the PhET simulators. It's
Hmm.
PHET. Um, they're one of my favorite places to use. They have different circuit ones that show the energy flow. That's really cool.
Okay.
Um, and if you're a more, hearing learner, then there's plenty of different podcasts and stuff you can find about certain science topics. Um, I definitely am more of the visual type, so I tend to know more about that type. But I'm definitely always open to finding new resources all the time if I can. Um, but yeah, I think um, the different coding.org, Scratch, Tinkercad, and different simulators are really, really good. Um, Different online tools.
Great. Yeah, I've put, if not the exact web address, then the information you need to Google in the chat for everyone there. And then I'll do my last question now, and then we'll open it up to any other questions from the chat, which is, what do you wish other girls, other students would know about engineering and becoming an inventor?
A lot of people should know that your ideas are valid and they're awesome. And I think everyone has what it takes to be able to see problems in the world and be able to break them down and make it better in some way. Um, Even if you aren't able to solve the entire problem, even if it's just one small part of it, if enough of us solve a small part, eventually that will snowball and grow into even a bigger impact than you could have ever imagined. Um, a really good connection that I've had and an example is me and my siblings saw a big problem with electronic waste, and we wanted to do something about it. We knew we couldn't solve the entire problem. It's too big of a problem for us to fix. The US alone just throws away 800 laptops per minute, which is
Oh, that was not the
insane
number I was
statistics.
expecting you to say. Minute?
Per minute, which seems insane, and that's just laptops. And we knew it was going to be really overwhelming to even try to make a dent in the problem. But we knew if we just sat there and didn't do anything, nothing was going to get solved. We weren't helping anything by just sitting there. So we knew even if we did the smallest thing, maybe we inspired others to be able to do it. So we made our nonprofit and we focused on gaming systems because that's a lot of electronics that are thrown away. So many new gaming systems come out all the time. And we've been able to refurbish over 50 systems so far. And we're hoping to grow, and we know we've inspired other people to create chapters in other places. We know it isn't a global impact, but it's still even the smallest impact. Um, and it's just important that if enough of us make small changes, it can eventually grow into an even bigger change. So even if you feel like you're not doing much for a problem, know that a small dent is better than no dent at all.
Absolutely, 100% agree. If you would drop the web address of your nonprofit, because I'm sure you have a website or something in the
I
chat for
I don't have it right with me, but if you look up Regame, it'll
the
hopefully
game.
pop up. I'm not
Okay.
sure what web address it is under right now. Samsung did do an article, so it should be somewhere in there.
Okay, perfect. We'll look that up, and when we post this on our YouTube, we'll make sure we put that in the description for anyone who's here live and didn't find that. But yes, I love what you're talking about with any dent is better than no dent. I think any one of us who makes the effort of recycling can appreciate that, because no individual consumer, no school is gonna erase the problem of trash. But if you see the value in recycling, you can see the value in, many, it takes every, what is it, something like a bunch of drops, every takes single drops to fill a bucket or something along those lines. I'm butchering whatever phrase that is, but it's so true. Like, I use reusable cloth napkins at home rather than paper towels, and just all these little things to try and help. So I love this repurposing and refurbishing gaming consoles. I think that is definitely an area, just like laptops, where technology turns over so quickly that it can become a huge problem.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining. I know we went a little long today, over our normal 20 minutes, but I think Lydia's still got a few more minutes to stick around for questions, right?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Lots of changing the world. You're very impressive. Thank you for the inspiration. Yes, you are definitely an inspiration. I
Thank you.
want to go try some things now. And we'll see if anyone has other thoughts. Otherwise, they're all just going to keep complimenting you, which I suppose is not a problem.
I don't mind that at all.
Eric, we'll see you on the Discovery channel. Tonya, you're an inspiration to youth to explore their ideas and thought. Crystal, an inspiration. Awesome. Well, again, thank you everyone who has joined today. I'm going to stop the recording, but thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Of course, it was my pleasure.